Okay guys, this is video 7.1 in module 7, and as I said, if you've reached this point, you've just been through a pretty harrowing calculation in order to determine the payments that your grandparents would have to make to an account that satisfies certain conditions in order for them to raise $10,000 to give you a gift when you graduated from college. I'm going to show you in this video how Excel, how the spreadsheet enables you to calculate those payments pretty much in a matter of seconds. But as I have said throughout this course, and as I continue to say, I think it's important for students to understand what's going on and where things are coming from. So I know that the spreadsheet does enable you to do this very quickly, but I think it's important to understand what it is that's going on when it does it. So let me remind you of the conditions of the investment of the problem. We know that the right here that the annual rate is 0.05, it's 5%. We know that the investment is compounding quarterly, compounds every 3 months, and so that means that n is equal to 4. I told you that the number of years of the investment is 22 years. We know that your grandparents are trying to raise $10,000, and I made the assumption also that your grandparents are making payments at the beginning of every quarter. And we saw that in the diagrams that I made as well. So let me put my cursor now in cell A1. I'm going to bring up the payment function, and I'm going to bring up the window for it. I'm not certain that this is going to show up, that the resolution for this is going to hold up, and that you're going to be able to see what's going on here. But I think if this doesn't work, look at the Illuminate recording. If you feel like you're able to follow it or just take notes on it and then go on and try it yourself, then that's fine as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to insert this function, this payment function. So I'm going to the Insert pull-down menu, which is right here, and I'm going to pull down until I get to the option Function, and I'm going to hit, I'm going to click my mouse, my cursor, and I get a little window. Of course, we get the Formula Builder window, and we get to pick the function that we want here. If your payment function isn't readily available, you can search for it, and it's abbreviated PMT, so I can tell you that. So you can put in PMT in the search, and you can actually, you might not be able to see this, but I just use the payment function, so it's showing up for me pretty quickly, but it should come up for you as well. So we're going to double click on payment. And what this does is it creates the equals payment formula inside cell A1. You cannot see what the arguments are here. And in fact, if you look down at this Formula Builder window, you can see that there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arguments for this formula. I don't know if you can see these, but I'm going to read through them one at a time, and then if you want to take notes on this, because I'm going to be reading the descriptions of each of these arguments right off the Formula Builder. And if, like I said, if you can't see them, just take a couple notes and then go to your spreadsheet and try it yourself. Okay? So the first argument that's showing up in this payment window is the rate. It's asking you for the rate. And it says in the description part, which is right here, it says that the rate is the interest rate per period for the loan. Okay? So it's asking you for an interest rate per period for the loan. So if you ask yourself the question, we've only learned about 2 rates. We've learned about an annual rate, and we've learned about an effective rate. And if it's asking us for a rate per period, which of those 2 do you think it wants us to put in? Do you think it wants us to put in the annual rate or the effective rate? Okay, so I hope that since it's per period, I hope you realize that, for us that means per quarter. So we're going to be putting the effective rate in for this argument into this space. So the effective rate we know is defined as the annual rate divided by the number of times that we compound in 1 year. So it's going to be 0.05 divided by 4. Some people put the decimal straight in here because they know the decimal, but some of these decimals round. So I actually like to just give Excel the annual rate divided by the number of times that you compound in a year, because then it holds the information in there for you. The rounding information is already in there for you. So I'm going to put in here for the rate 0.05 divided by 4. And you can see that that argument is actually showing up in cell A1. Just put it in here. You can see it in the formula bar. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. I'm going to move my cursor now to the next argument, to the next space, which says NPER, and that stands for the number of periods. And if you look at the description for the number of periods, it says this is the total number of payments for the loan. Excuse me. So how many payments do your grandparents make? That should be a very easy question to answer. Your grandparents made 88 payments. They are compounding 4 times a year. Number of years is 22. They're making 88 payments on this. So we're going to put 88 in here. You can see again how that shows up inside the cell after a comma, and it's showing up, I don't know if you can see it inside the formula bar, but it is showing up there. Okay. The next cell says PV, and it says this is the present value. Now, this should sound a little unfamiliar to you, and the reason it sounds unfamiliar is because we actually haven't done this yet. And it says present value, the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. And this is actually a topic that we have not yet covered. We are going to cover this in our last module, but if we're going to leave this blank, and if you move on to the next argument, the next space, which says FV, it says FV is the future value. And the future value is defined as the cash balance you want to attain after the last payment is made. So now this is asking you for, how much money are you after? What are you trying to, another way of saying that is, what are you trying to raise? So what are we trying to raise in this problem? How much money? Well, we're trying to raise $10,000. So we're going to put in $10,000 into that space, into that argument. Okay? And then finally, the last cell, the last space, I'm sorry, or the last argument is the type. And if you read the descriptions are written right up here. It might be too small to see. It says the type is a logical value. And here's the way you figure out what type you're going to put in. It says if you make the payment at the beginning of the period, then you're going to put the number 1 in here. If you make the payment at the end of the period, you're going to put a 0, or you're just going to leave this blank. And what were our assumptions? We were assuming that the payments were being made at the beginning of every quarter. So we're going to put a number 1 in here. And when you do that, if you look at the lower right-hand corner of the formula builder, you can actually see your 6223 popping up there already. It's already there. I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to close the formula builder. And I think you can see now that the 6223 is showing up. So we figured out what the quarterly payments are. The red, the fact that it's showing up in red means that it's interpreting this as a negative value. And if you use this in any formulas, it's going to interpret it as negative, and it will subtract it. So if you want to make this positive, I'm going to double click on this. If you want to make this positive, one thing you can do is you can come here, you double click. I'm going to put my cursor right in front of the payment and right after the equals. I know that the quantity that comes after that is negative, and I can make something negative positive by multiplying it by negative. So I'm just going to put a negative sign out in front of that and hit return. And now the 6223 is black, and that's it. You just figured out your quarterly payments. Okay? So once again, I know Excel does this in a matter of seconds, but I hope that you now have some appreciation for the very complicated equation that Excel is solving in order to obtain this quarterly payment. And I hope you have some understanding of where it's coming from. Okay, we'll end the recording right there. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, if you have trouble seeing this, I think the Illuminate recording might be a little bit clearer. Or maybe you took notes, or maybe you can just watch this again. Okay, guys.